Welcome to another episode of Sanford Says. I'm Lisa Holder, Communications and Marketing Manager for the City of Sanford, and today is our very first episode with video. So you've seen or heard my voice for the last 5 years, and here we are now on our video podcasting session, and we're so excited about this. And our very first guest on the video podcasting session is Dr. Deborah Bauer. Deborah Bauer is a community volunteer. She's also officially the Seminole County Historical Commissioner. And the way we have met was in Citizens Academy for the City of Sanford. And so you're a Citizens Academy graduate, class 20, and that's how we originally met. You're also the Seminole County Arts Council Executive Director, which is another reason why we connect because of public art in the City of Sanford. And then also you teach at Valencia College history, American history. So what great person to talk about the Seminole County Semi-Quincentennial Planning Subcommittee. Welcome, Deborah. How are you?
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be able to talk to you this morning. Especially, I teach college freshmen, but usually they're a captive audience when they're in front of me. So it's kind of nice to be able to be speaking with someone that I know won't be expecting to be here just because they have to get a grade.
Right, exactly. Yes, I'm here and we're here to find out some really great information because America is turning 250 next year and it is a big birthday. And so there's celebrations to be had, isn't there, Deb?
Yeah.
And can you tell us what the county has proposed and what they put together to acknowledge that?
The answer right now is TBD. I can tell you we are knee-deep in the planning phases. The way that I kind of found myself in the middle of this is Seminole County has a advisory board, the Seminole County Historical Commission. It's actually one of the oldest in the county because it was established many, many years ago, going back, I think, all the way at least 3 or 4 decades, depending on where you look at the date. And I'm very happy I was appointed to serve as a representative from District 2. And the goal of that advisory board is to advise the Seminole County Board of County Commissioners about issues of historical significance and importance. And about, it's almost 4 months ago now, we had a citizen come to one of our monthly meetings and they asked the question, what are you guys planning for the 250th? And at that time, my brain kind of just went, wow, what an interesting, great question. Because I think about that all the time in the scope of when I'm teaching my students American history. But it really hadn't come up to that point in discussing it with the public and with the county. And so the Historical Commission started talking about it and tried to figure out what the county was interested in pursuing and what had been planned, if anything. And before we knew it, we started having these conversations. And it was like, well, this is something that's bigger than just Seminole County itself, Seminole County government. And before you knew it, we suddenly turned around. We then, within the span of about a month, were able to get volunteers from all 7 cities, Seminole State College, Seminole County Public School District, and the airport. And we were able to form a planning subcommittee. And we've spent the last 3 months working to put together, soliciting input, public input, talking amongst ourselves, brainstorming, coming up with suggestions of how the county, and working in tandem, not just for the county, but working across all those different institutions, how to plan for really celebrating what's an amazing achievement because the United States is having its 250th birthday next year in 2026.
Right. And we only get one time to celebrate that, right? And so you are the chair of the subcommittee.
Yes.
And
in their wisdom, my fellow historical commissioners gave me that honor, and it was a duty I was happy to fulfill.
Right, and a good one at that, a good choice. I mean, you have all that great background and everything to lead such a subcommittee. But as I am now on the subcommittee for the City of Sanford, and I have attended those meetings, I do know how important it is to have that collaboration between all of the different, municipalities in the city, in the county, as well as all of the other big agencies, like you mentioned, to come together as one and present a plan to the county commissioners who will eventually approve the plan and all of that. Can you share more of like how that process is going to work? And I understand there was a grant that was submitted to the state of Florida.
Yeah, one of the things in these very difficult times of financial strain, this is something that all municipalities, all organizations are dealing with. It's tough times financially, and trying to find a way to take care of the needs that we have versus wants has been something that's been a challenge. And although everyone has loved the idea of how to commemorate and celebrate this big anniversary, it's not something that really there's been a lot of budget for. So one of the goals of the subcommittee has been to try and come up with ways and plans to make certain that whatever we're putting together and recommending as a plan of commemoration is not something that's going to rely on taxpayer dollars. And so we're forming a plan that's largely being reliant, as you mentioned, on grants. We've applied to the state of Florida for a pretty big grant that we haven't found out about, that, but hopefully we might get some good news in a couple weeks if the stars align. But also fostering public-private partnerships and donations and sponsorships through those partnerships so that we can have a great time, really do something nice for the public, and also not be a burden on those budgets that are really already stretched to the limit for things that are necessary.
Right. Right. And in some people's minds, this is a necessary celebration, but we understand priorities, of course, in local government. But talk about the opportunity for the public to come in and provide some input of what they would like to see. We had some folks come in, and they're public meetings. We have to mention that. And
so we have been meeting since June, and we still have 3 meetings left. They are open to the public. And really, this is one of those things where people always say, like, what is the purpose of government? What is the purpose of good government? And one of the things that the Historical Commission felt really strongly about is we wanted to get as much input from all community stakeholders. And that's a really fancy way of saying we want to hear from citizens of all genders, creeds, backgrounds, whatever your experience, whatever your perspective is. Each of those perspectives brings a different set of priorities and wants to the conversation. And we want to make sure that we're getting that input so that this isn't a plan that when it's presented to the county commission, we want to be able to say that we really solicited suggestions and feedback from the public from all across the county so that everyone had the opportunity to come in and say, this is what we think Seminole County should do.
Right.
So we have 3 more public meetings. We meet in the Seminole County Board of County Commissioner Chambers at 1101 East 1st Street. It's the County Commission building in downtown Sanford on Lake Monroe, just down the street from Sanford City Hall.
Yeah.
And our next meeting will be on Monday, September 8th at 5 p.m. Our next meeting after that is Thursday, September 25th. That is at 6 p.m. And then our final public meeting will be on Thursday, October 9th, and that is again at 6 p.m. And so really we recommend and we want to hear from the citizens of Seminole County. We've had past meetings where we've had different 501c3s, we've had citizen groups come out, cultural heritage groups, historical societies, neighborhood associations, saying these are our ideas and we really want to help support this going forward. And here's how we think we can do that. And so we know that there are still more people out there that need to come and speak. And so we want you guys to come. Please come and talk to us. Please come and speak if you have ideas, or you can also email them. And that's something we realize that not everyone, because they work, they have issues with childcare or transportation, you may not necessarily be able to get to that evening meeting. If you can't get to that meeting, you can also email your ideas. And that way we can present them so that we make sure anyone who wants to say something before us has the opportunity to do so.
Excellent. Access, yes, local community, local government. So can you explain how people can reach, where they can find more information outside of those public meetings? Do we have their social media, I understand? Is there a way that people can just research it on their own?
So there are a couple different things right now. Obviously, the planning for America's 250th birthday actually started as a federal initiative. And so there is a United States government website dedicated to the 250th. There's also a state of Florida 250th website that you can go on that talks about different things that are already, although keep in mind, we're still, not only is Seminole County still in the early planning stages, but lots of different municipalities and counties throughout the state. All 67 of us are trying to figure out how to best do this. And it seems like a long time away, but it's also not.
Right.
And so you can always go to the state of Florida webpage, but also if you're interested in learning about Seminole County, right now there is not a Seminole 250 page,
Right.
but we're hoping in the not distant future, it'll be up.
Working on it.
Meantime, you can go to Seminole County Parks and Leisure, their
Okay.
social media feeds, and get the latest updates about when the meetings are being held and the process and how you can participate.
Okay, that's great information. And also, a lot of the cities are sharing the information also on their social media. So we want to mention that. And what would you say is the significance behind this celebration, other than 250 years of America? Yes, but for the average citizen, or what would you think could be the significance as a American history teacher?
So one of the things when it comes to history is, and my students always say, why are we learning this? Because it's just about, George Washington slept here. Why do I need to know that? If I'm a nurse, or if I'm someone who's getting a business degree or a science degree, why are we being put through the torture of having to go into your history class, Dr. B? And what I always tell them is our history are stories. And all of our stories tell us where we've come from, the good, the bad, the ugly. And for us, one of the most amazing things in history that people don't realize is when the United States was founded in 1776, the last time that a government was formed as a democracy was going back to the 5th century BCE in ancient Athens. That's more than 2,000 years. So if you think about that, the 400s BCE to 1776.
Yeah.
Hadn't had a democratic state where you had rule and government by the people and for the people.
Right.
It hadn't existed. And we are the longest surviving democracy in the history of the world. And I think that's something when you want to, everyone has very passionate ideas about what government is and what it should do. But I think the one thing that unifies all of us, or at least the one thing that should unify all of us, is that we have that right and that duty to participate in government. And that's something that really before 1776, that's not how things were. And so, prior to 1776, there were a lot of ways that government was done. You had kings and queens, and you had different, oligarchs and people in power, but you didn't have someone come along until those founding fathers got together in Philadelphia in 1776 and said, people have the right to participate in their own government. And that's what our government rule should be about. You didn't really have that. And despite all of the complicated history that came after it, and the story that is the story of us, the story of the United States, it all starts with that one moment with the founding fathers saying, we think that the people know how best to rule themselves. And I think that that's something that's an ideal, regardless of what your personal experience, personal background is. That's something not only should we think about and remember, but we should be very proud of it.
Well, thank you, Dr. Bauer. I learned some things.
It's my fun.
Yeah. I feel like I need to raise my hand and ask you a question in school. But I mean, it's very interesting. And you're right, because without history, that's why we're celebrating this, is because of it, like you just mentioned, we're recognizing where we came from, like you said, good, bad, and the ugly. But, and of course, the red, white, and blue, right? The United States of America. What are some great projects, or what we're talking about the committee, like we're having suggestions. Should we share? Can we share some of those? Just like what we're talking about in terms of celebrating.
Yeah, okay. One of the things I'm most excited about is something we're making a suggestion called the Seminole County Liberty Tree Program. And here in Seminole County, we all know that one of the mottos, the most important mottos, and one of the most important ideals that helps define Seminole County is we say that Seminole County, we're Florida's natural choice.
Yeah.
And the environment is very important to us, protecting the environment and making sure we're embracing what the land is to
Surgery.
And so one of the things that we're including in our suggested plan of commemoration is this Liberty Tree program, because way back in the day, one of the ways that the patriots who fought in the American Revolution helped to gather together to unify is they would meet under a tree called a Liberty Tree. And it was an elm tree traditionally, and that has kind of become the symbol of patriotism and liberty. And so...
Wait, excuse, what kind of tree was it originally?
An elm tree.
Elm tree, okay.
Yes, an elm tree.
I recognize elm tree, but I didn't know what a liberty... Is a liberty tree an elm tree?
Yeah.
Okay.
It is an elm tree that was kind of... It became this... Because, back in the day, they obviously didn't have their cell phones or emails to say, hey, I'm ready to meet up. Where do you want to... Where should I find you?
Right.
And so they kind of had to have a place where everyone would know to go together.
Okay.
And so the Liberty Trees is where the patriots would meet. They would have their meetings. They would have protests. They would have discussions, and they would gather under these Liberty Trees. And so although there are several different varieties of elm tree, there actually is a Florida native species elm tree that's native to Florida, because we want to be environmentally friendly and responsible. We want to plant something that will actually grow and last. So we're hoping that all of the different host institutions, the county, the 7 cities, the college, the school district, and the airport, will all have a Florida elm tree that is going to be planted next year in 2026. And it's going to be dedicated as one of those 11 Florida Seminole County Liberty trees.
Okay.
And hopefully will live on for many years to come, and maybe to the next, 500th anniversary.
Yeah,
200th.
Exactly. No, I like that idea, and I love the fact that Seminole County, that's one of the reasons why I live here, is the natural choice. And I always say that, and that's so fitting to plant a tree in this city, in this community, because of Sanford's a tree city USA, and most of our cities are definitely, have a lot of wildlife and environmental things going on. So that's a great idea. And we're still planning. There are other options too that involve public art. There are options that involve the school system and students and music and all kinds of different types of ideas. Nothing's set in stone. And again, the Seminole County commissioners have the final say-so and to approve that. But in the long run, this will start in January, officially 2026. Yeah. When are we going to start once it's approved? And if the grant comes through, when can we expect to see this in our community, the celebration happening?
So really what you're seeing is actually 2 parallel things happening in Seminole County right now that have to do with the 250th, but they're separate even though they're interrelated, because what's been happening is this larger unified commemorative plan is in the planning stages, but then you have each of those founding institutions, like, for example, the city of Sanford, is also beginning to institute their own individual plans for what and how the 250th will be commemorated. And so what our goal is for the Seminole 250 subcommittee, which is kind of the nickname we've been giving it, because semi-quincentennial, saying that 10 or 15 times during an hour meeting, I end up stumbling over it. Okay. It's a very fancy way of just saying Seminole 250.
Right.
What we see is we're going to be putting this plan together with the idea that because the 7 municipalities, the airport, the school district, and the college have been stakeholders and been unified in this planning, we're hoping that the plan, when it goes to the county commissioners, will be go before the Seminole County Historical Commission first at their October meeting, and then hopefully that will be forwarded on to the county commission in sometime after that in October.
Right.
And then the county commission will then take a look and say, okay, this is what we've done. This is what we're suggesting. Now it's up to you guys, because we've advised you, and you guys are the final say on what you think things should be employed when and how. And what that's going to look like is really up to the county commission at that point. But we have tons of great ideas. Like you said, we've had some ideas about possibly having a historical marker dedicated to the 250th anniversary. We've been working with a lot of nonprofits to get ideas. So there's been some support. I know, for example, at the Ritz Theater, the Wayne Dentry Performing Arts Center, just down the street on First Street, they're going to be doing some different movies with patriotic themes next year. There's a couple different concerts. Seminole State College is going to be
And the potential with the planetarium.
Yeah, the planetarium.
Super cool, that idea.
Derek at the Seminole State Planetarium, although these aren't firm now, they talked about a couple different ideas, possibly having like a virtual tour of Independence Hall in Philadelphia, having some different themed topics related to colonial history seen through the planetarium. Because this is something that, although it's like kind of an all-star game for historians, it's something that we really want to cross over so that it goes into art, like you said. And Seminole Cultural Arts Council is going to be doing an art show next summer about it.
Right.
The school district is going to be working with us on some different speaker options and possibly looking at some different talks and things like that. So really, we're hoping that by taking so much time and effort in this planning stage, that once the final report is put together, we're going to have that go plan. And be ready to hit the ground running so that as soon as January starts, you're going to see not just events although July is going to be a very popular month because that's where actual birthday is.
Right.
You're going to see 12 months of different things throughout the county.
Right.
So if you live in Sanford, if you work in Sanford, you're going to be seeing things. But if you live or work in a different part of the county, like Castleberry, Altamont, Oviedo, Longwood, Lake Mary,
Winter
Springs, all of us are going to be having different things at different times of the year. And so you're going to be able to see all of those.
Right. Things. Yeah. And I keep saying red, white, and blue just all over the place. But of course, July 4th, Veterans Day, and then also the museum. I know the Seminole County Museum is going to have an exhibit out there about, which is wonderful too, because Sanford has a museum. There are some cities that have, I think it's just Sanford and the county that made
Lake Mary.
Lake Mary, that's right. Of course, our
Geneva
friends over there.
Has one too.
Yeah, so because the county in general has a lot of its own history, and for a smaller county to have so much rich history and these museums, it's wonderful. There's the Goldsboro Museum. There's all types of museums in this area. So commemorating this is a really good thing. So what else can we talk about here? Oh, I just want to mention, because I remember in 1976 when they had that celebration, it was a big deal. And as a kid, and so now that's something that I will always remember. So think about the children today and those memories that our celebration, our semi-quincentennial celebration will give kids growing up now about and looking back, 50 years later. So it's could be quite memorable for children as well. And
I can tell you that one thing that Seminole County Public Schools does every year is they have a history fair for their middle school and high school students. And that history fair is based off of something called the National History Day. The county fair is usually held each March. And the winners then go on to Tallahassee, which held the Florida State History Fair in May. And then the winners of that go on to the National History Fair in Baltimore in the summer. And the theme next year has to do with celebrating the 250th anniversary. So I think students are going to have a tremendous number of opportunities to see and learn about some pretty cool things that, for example, one of the mistruths, like sometimes they always say, I've been lied to. Well, we don't like to say that you've been lied to, but you actually have been lied to, because a lot of people say, there were 13 colonies to start, right? There were 13 stars on Betsy Ross's flag. Well, believe it or not, there were actually more than 13 colonies. And where we are right now in Sanford, we are sitting smack dab in the middle of what was actually the 14th colony. And this was actually, the 14th colony was something called East Florida, and its capital was at St. Augustine. And East Florida, there were actually 15 altogether. West Florida, with its capital at Pensacola, was the last colony, and the 14th and 15th tend to get lost because they were colonies when they were taking a vote. Like, do we break away from the colonies of the British Empire and go against King George, who was King of England at the time? And Florida, East and West Florida, actually were the only two that when they took the vote, they said, no, we don't want to be a part of the Patriots. We don't want to be a part of the United States. We want to stay loyal to the king. And so that's kind of gotten lost in the narrative. And so people are like, Well, there were 13 colonies, but not quite. There were just 13 who said, we want to go be independent and be a part of this democracy. So that's kind of, if you're looking for a fun fact related to the it's for trivia night, we're living in the 14th.
So let me ask you this really personal question. What drew you to be an American history teacher? What did you
it was by accident, quite honestly.
accident.
Like most things in my life, I knew I always wanted to be a teacher from a very young age. I was literally one of those little girls who all I wanted was a chalkboard and a red ink pen so that I could line up my stuffed animals as my students and then start, making them do lessons that I could come up with. And I didn't really realize that I wanted to be a history teacher until I actually was in the middle of my bachelor's degree, because I just loved history. That was always my favorite subject. But it kind of didn't click until I was an undergrad. And they said, okay, if you want to go to grad school, you can't go to grad school without picking a topic, or else you'll never finish your degree.
Yeah.
And I actually, when I say by accident, it was kind of by accident, because I had one of my teachers when I was a senior in college, and she said, listen, if you want to go to grad school, the way people in grad school, when they go to get a history master's degree or a history Ph.D., you don't do it to become rich. Do it because you want to, you love it.
Yeah.
And so the teacher I had, who actually coincidentally, her name was Lisa too, I will never forget it. She said, since you're going to grad school and you're going to spend all this money to get your advanced degree, what do you want to teach? If you imagine yourself teaching something for the rest of your life, would you rather teach an intro to English class, or would you rather teach an intro to American history class? Because that's how grad school works. And the idea of being in an English Comp 101 class for the rest of my life kind of seemed like it was purgatory. The idea was purgatory. I said, oh, I want to teach American history.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, she said, well, I think you need to think about looking at a history master's degree. And then before you know it, I did some work at the University of North Florida under a professor by the name of Dr. Dan Schaefer. And he's kind of considered, even to this day, although he's been retired for many years, he was kind of the foremost expert on Florida when it was a 14th colony. And kind of just backed into it from there, and went on, did my Ph.D. at University of South Florida, and actually became a Florida historian, but also worked with archaeology. And that's something.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that really a part, because sometimes historical documents can only tell part of the story.
Right.
Sometimes you have to look at what's been left behind.
Yeah.
Because not everyone could read, not everyone could write.
Yeah.
So that's been really exciting. I kind of found myself where I am.
That's really interesting story. I do also understand that you can also have reenactments and things to explain history and all of that, not just paper, like you said, and reading and architectural, but you can participate in that type of thing. I don't know if they have those types of reenactments.
Oh, no, we do. We actually have them here in Seminole County. So a lot of times people will confuse, this is another fun fact, they will confuse the wonderful City of Sanford museum that's run by the City of Sanford under a wonderful lady by the name of Brigitte Stevenson.
Yeah.
And that's the one that's on Lake Monroe, right on First Street.
Right.
But we have a county museum that is actually on U.S. Highway 1792, right near the Seminole County Five Points complex. Or if anyone knows where Animal Control is, it's right in front of Animal Control.
Yeah.
And that museum is run by the county. Our coordinator is a fantastic individual by the name of Bennett Lloyd. And Bennett has been doing, since he came on as coordinator for the museum 7 or 8 years ago, he, like myself, one thing that we agree on is that history has to be brought alive. And so he's been working very hard over the past few years to do these living history encampments. The next one that we have coming up is actually in September. We're going to be doing one at the museum. It's actually a colonial encampment talking about how a conquistador, a Spanish conquistador named Pedro Menendez de Avillas, landed not too far from what is now Seminole County. And so they bring out things like the muskets, and although the Seminole County Fire Department doesn't like it, we occasionally will set off, do musket refirings as reenactments. Only with permission, though, I promise.
Right.
And then the other big enactment that we do in the spring every year in February is most people, when they think of the history of Sanford and Seminole County, they think of the Seminole War period, which was a period in the 1800s from about 1810 through the 1850s. There were a series of 3 conflicts between the American government, American settlers, and the Seminole tribe of Florida. And that's actually how Sanford was founded. That's Fort Mellon Park, if you've ever wondered why it was called Fort Mellon.
Yeah.
Because there actually was a fort named after a gentleman who was killed in, I think, 1837, Mellon, who was killed. And we have that encampment that's held to commemorate the battle in February. And it'll be happening again in February.
Yeah, I recall that now. Yeah, so you mentioned it. But yeah, but ask a history teacher a question.
Yeah, you pulled my string. You're going to hear the song. Yeah.
There's, for those history buffs out there, this is, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
If you either like history and love history, or you don't, right?
Yep.
Right. But I'm one of them that happens to like
You're very
history.
patient.
Yeah.
Thank you for indulging me with my.
I'm having a high school flashback right now, but
hopefully not too traumatic.
No, no, not too traumatic. So, Dr. Deborah Bauer, is there anything else that we want to say in general about the semi-quincentennial celebration to get people fired up and excited about it?
Yeah, so there are 2 things I can tell you right now. One of the coolest things, we've actually done an unofficial kickoff for the Seminole 250. We had it on July 31st, just about a month ago, at the Museum of Seminole County History, because we have a wonderful map that dates from the year 1765, because people always tended to think that people didn't live here in Seminole County. There weren't actually people aside from indigenous natives who lived here in the 1700s, and that's not actually true. We found a map that details particularly the most detailed place were settlements along what is now Lake Harney, going out towards the Oviedo, Geneva area. And we found it from England, from an archive in England, and we were able to bring that map, get it digitized, and then reprint it here. And it's on display at the museum. And it's a part of an exhibit. There are going to be 2 exhibits. The first is one about the history of colonial Florida, and the map is kind of the centerpiece. You can see it. The museum is open Tuesdays through Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. And the Fighting Florida exhibit will go through the end of November. And then starting in January, like you mentioned before, there's going to be a new exhibit about 250 years of the American dream and the role that the military has played from the perspective of Seminole County in helping to safeguard that dream. And that will go from January until roughly Memorial Day. And then we're just kind of like, the planning is where we are with, depending on if some of those grant applications that we put in come in or not. You may have to have me back because I may have more big announcements.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think we will.
Yeah.
Cross our fingers, right?
So, check it out. Please come to the meetings.
Yeah, that's basically what we'd like for people to do, is to have public input, and it's going to be a collaboration, and an exciting one at that. 250 years of America celebration, and Seminole County is right there, waiting to celebrate with our community.
And also don't forget that coming up in 2 years, because while we were studying the 250th, City of Sanford has a big birthday coming up in 2027.
We do.
So you guys will get to see why anniversaries. Sometimes people think that, something's always having a birthday or an anniversary. Like the city of Oviedo just had their centennial. Lake Mary Elementary is actually turning 100 this Saturday. And so they're having a ceremony at the Lake Mary Farmers Market at 10 a.m. on Saturday.
Okay.
City of Castleberry is going to be turning 85. I mean, we could stay here for hours just talking about all of these different anniversaries. But the city of Sanford turning 150 in 2027, I think it's really cool. And I kind of hope that maybe if we pull off this Seminole 250 celebration, that we might get some really good ideas for how citizens can perhaps participate in planning something for Sanford's 150th.
Stay tuned for that.
Not in the future.
That's right. And not to mention, the Sanford Fire Department turned 150 years just a few years ago. We have that beautiful mural in downtown Sanford commemorating that. So there's a lot to be proud of, and a lot of history that has brought us to where we are today.
Definitely.
And so thank you, Dr. Bauer.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for indulging me with my my long-windedness, but hopefully someone will take away some fun facts.
Yeah, that's right. That's really great. Well, thank you again. This is Lisa Holder, Communications and Marketing Manager for the City of Sanford, and you're listening and watching now Sanford Says, and you can find us wherever you subscribe to your favorite podcasts and on the city website at sanfordfl.gov. Thank you again, Deb.
Thank
It was
you.
wonderful.
Thank you for having me.
We'll see you around town
Definitely.
and all of that, and back again soon.
Yep.
Have a great day, everybody. Thank
Take
you
care.
for listening and watching.